That was the whole thing with my YouTube channel, is when I first wanted to start this channel as a resource for, because when I started animation, I was dropping out to do that. The whole point of my channel was, actually it was inspired by the guy, by Ryan and the team over at Film Riot. That's how I learned the beginning of my filmmaking schools to make the movie at Cannes in the first place. So that was super fun. But the overall idea was just like, I want to learn animation. I don't know how to do that. And I don't have a portfolio to go to CalArts or the money to go to that kind of a school. How do you get into this business? And I just kind of had to figure it out. But then I thought, it'd be really cool if someone who has done this would have made some kind of a YouTube channel documenting their process and how they got into the industry and da-da-da-da, like Film Riot. And then I was like, I should do that for animation. But I didn't start it for 3 years because every single time I thought to do it, it was like, but what if I'm like making videos about doing those things and I never actually succeed? That's going to be super embarrassing to just publicly fail over and over. Suddenly I find myself at DreamWorks going, man, I should have started that channel. So I said, screw it. Actually, it was my wife, or I guess at the time, we were dating at the time. She has a YouTube channel. She was a YouTuber before I was. And so she was the one who was like, you should just do it. So I did. So I was self-sabotaging just due to the failure of both fear of failure, but also fear of success. Because like, what if this like works and I have to like not get fired, or like, I don't know, like just the idea that what if it works and the channel starts to be a thing and people find it useful, and anyway.
Yeah,
the pressures of that.
No, I mean, that's just it, because you are leaving yourself pretty vulnerable. I mean, it's usually going online, especially YouTube, it can be a bit of a toxic place. So it's one of those things that you've got to open yourself up for everyone. Like I was just saying to my wife the other day, like, man, I feel like I must be failing on YouTube lately. I haven't had any like hate comments in weeks. So like, to me, that's a metric of like, well, maybe I'm not, really kind of doing enough or getting in front of the right people, because everyone's gonna like, I feel like a lot of times the people who are commenting, especially if you do get something extremely toxic, I get really intrigued with like, who is this person, like what kind of pain are they going through, and fair enough, like you go on their Facebook or some Twitter feed or whatever, and it's just like they're just lashing out at everyone, so you kind of almost can't take it personally, because it's you're one of many that they're firing out at. But for you, what was that experience like? Your father being an entrepreneur, did a lot of that rub off on you in terms of valuable lessons and even understanding, how to approach ideas that you have with doing your due diligence and making sure there's a strategy, rather than, hey, I'm just gonna quit my job and go start a YouTube channel? But yeah, I'm curious, like, what lessons you've learned from having that kind of family, interest, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely made all the difference. I feel like I had a huge advantage going into this whole thing, just based on like growing up. My parents were always very transparent with us, with their kids, with us about finances. If we were struggling, we usually knew it. We usually knew why, and we usually knew to what extent, because it was like, we don't have like internet or TV this month, or like we don't have phones this month, because we didn't grow up particularly wealthy, but we were doing fine. But there were months where like, we like noticed things were a little bit different, and so that was something that, again, kind of with that risk factor of like, okay, like when you're in business for yourself, like things don't always go amazing. You don't have that security, so you have to figure things out. And so I think between just being aware of risk and how to properly plan and strategize and come up with a solid course of action, and to be flexible, that's one thing. Another thing is just like business conversations, negotiations, contracts, knowing the importance of lawyers and things like that. Just that overall familiarity with that process helped a ton, especially when I left DreamWorks. I didn't initially set out to become a full-time YouTuber. I wanted to put more effort into the channel, but I was going to do it through a year of freelance, and then I just share what I learned on the channel. And I hated freelancing. It was hard, and not because like the work was difficult. Like the work was boring because I didn't have any contacts hardly at all. So my best gigs came from the contacts I did have, but those jobs were, which I was grateful for these jobs, but these jobs were like, hey, can you remove the staples from the underside of this couch? Can you do this logo and make it spin? And I was like, I wanted to do character animation, but everything I got from that was like, oh, we have this web series idea. Would you, we can credit you, you know, we'll send it to festivals. But knowing how to navigate freelance and how the deals and the gigs that I did get, it was hugely beneficial having kind of come from a family that was familiar with the entrepreneurial skill set to basically create my own opportunities and recognizing like, okay, well, I'm not getting any work. I should just go do this. And I should call this company and say, hey, this looks like something that you guys have interest in and maybe don't have anyone working on at the moment. Can I help out with that? And so pitching and all that kind of stuff, all of that came back to my dad. So I have him to thank for a lot of that.
That's something that most people either never get or it takes them a long time to realize. It's like really looking for what's missing or what the pain points are with the other party that you can solve, because most of the time people are being pitched, but if they've got to do the thinking part of it, then you know, people aren't going to stop everything, drop it all and be like, okay, how can you help me? But when someone comes along and says, hey, I noticed that this isn't working, or your studio doesn't have someone who could write scripts or whatever it could be, and you start to paint the picture of what the benefit could be for them, then suddenly they are sold on that, and it makes it a lot easier for those opportunities to kind of get greenlit. So that I think it's really awesome that you're able to have picked up on that so early.
Yeah, I was very fortunate with a lot of the stuff in like early life. It all came back in really weird, helpful ways that I'm very grateful for all of that. You know how in school it's like, I'm never going to use this. Why am I learning calculus? This is going to be useless in my life. Joke's on me. Derivative graphs and stuff are the one thing I was good at in calculus. It's the graph editor in Maya. Like, I don't get to say I'll never use. I use it every day.